If you're nervous about the initial screening call, then this is the video you need to watch, because I'm going to showcase what you need to do to prepare for a screening call and what you should expect in the process. So I'm Tony McBride, I'm a career transition coach, and I help individuals with understanding the types of CVs they need for their strategy and how to tailor them, as well as interview tips for how to get over the line and understand the types of roles that you've got the skills for. And a lot of people are asking me more and more about that initial screening call. So I wanted to do this video so that you've got a bit of a better sense of what to expect. So let's start with the purpose of a screening call and why those kind of calls happen in the first place. So you've submitted your CV for an opportunity and the ATS software has ranked you high potentially. The recruiter has looked at your CV and they think that you're a good match for the role that they're advertising for. So before they pass it to a hiring manager who will kick their ass, frankly, if it doesn't make it a good match, then they want to speak to you and validate you to make sure that you've got the right experience, because they need to be sure that you're the right fit and that you meet the brief that they have been given by the hiring manager. So first tip for you is to make sure that you've got the CV in front of you when you're having the conversation. You should be tailoring your CVs for each of the opportunities that you're applying for. So it's important to make sure you've got the right one. So reference that CV and make sure that you're telling the same story that you've submitted as part of your application. Next, consider what your potential gaps are and what you're going to do about those whenever you are successful for the role. Because this is exactly what the hiring manager is probably going to ask the recruiter, and the recruiter will need to know what your response is. So ultimately, make sure that you have a think about what your transferable skills are. So let's say you're going for a data analyst role and you've got exposure with Tableau, which is a data visualization software, but the role requires Power BI. They work very similarly, so you can explain that you've got advanced user level of Tableau, you've scratched the surface with Power BI, and you're looking forward to being able to get to grips with how to work it better as part of this opportunity. It helps them understand that you recognize that you've not used that tool, but you've got the transferable skills instead. Equally, make sure you can highlight that enthusiasm to learn. If you're able to tell them exactly what you're going to do when you join and how you'll overcome that gap, perhaps it's an industry gap or perhaps it's another skill that you might need to look into, then the hiring manager has a story to be told by the recruiter that'll explain exactly what's going on. Next is the salary, and honestly, salary negotiation is a whole other video. So if you hit that subscribe button, I will do a video next week, which is all about how to negotiate your salary, okay? But in terms of this section of it, when it comes to this screening piece, sometimes you might price yourself out when it comes to the salary that's being offered. But because your CV is such a close match, the recruiter might want to chat to you and understand what the motivation is around the salary and see if they can talk you into something that's within range so they can submit you because you're a good candidate. So be prepared to understand what your flexibility is with salary. And make sure that you ask them, because they'll likely tell you anyway, but make sure that you ask them, what is the full reward package? Because the pension might be better, you might have more days off, you might have a car allowance or additional bonus or subsidiary of some kind that might make up the difference. So ask what the full package is and be willing to negotiate what you're most comfortable with when it comes to the salary. You can always negotiate the salary later at the time of an offer, so bear that in mind at this stage. So if you go in a bit lower, you might be able to get it higher at the end. But if you absolutely will never work at the price that they're stating, it's better for both of you to withdraw from the process at that point, okay? Next thing, consider what questions you have, because this is genuinely your safe space to ask any questions that you need to. The recruiters are on your side, and I know that might feel hard to believe, but they want to hire the right person for this opportunity. So that's why they're having this call. So if you ask them these questions up front, they will tell you the truth. They will give you the sense of what the law of the land is so that you are the right fit and that you're not put off from those kind of things. They want you to impress the hiring manager, so they don't want you to ask the silly questions to them. So think about the kind of things you really want to know and ask the recruiter, and that way they can make sure that they've answered those on your behalf so that when you're in the interview process, if you're successful, you're not tarnishing your own brand with those. And my last point is around leaving a great impression, okay? The thing that you've got to bear in mind is that when a recruiter is speaking to you, they're going to want to get to know you better. When they pass all of the CVs across to the hiring manager is likely going to ask how the screening calls went. And the recruiter will give a quick overview of what that was, but they'll likely tell them who the standout people were. So you want to make sure that you're on that list. So consider your demeanor, consider the way that you build rapport, and have a good conversation with that recruiter. Because if they're left with a good impression, they're likely going to tell the hiring manager who left a good impression, and that'll help them select the right person, which is you. So don't sweat too much if you don't get through this section of the screening call, okay? The reason I say that is because there's so many conflicting messages sometimes between hiring managers and recruiters. No matter how well you would have done in that screening call, the hiring manager might take one look at your CV and decide you're not the right fit. And that's feedback for the recruiter to go find better candidates. Or there might be a mismatch in the brief that they were given, which is why you were submitted in the first place. So if you're not successful for this, try not to overanalyze how the screening call went, because it's likely a cog in the wheel that is broken down between that relationship between the screener and the hiring manager. So do your best in that section, but don't massively pivot your strategy if you didn't get that right. And do ask for feedback if you're not successful, and continue to chase down if you've had that conversation within a few weeks. So I'm Tony McBride. If you hit like, or if you've got any questions, hit comment, and make sure you subscribe so I can do that salary video next week. Good luck on your job searches.